Hi, everyone. It's Lauren Conlin and Jarrett Ferrantino. Welcome to Prime Time Crime Live.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jarrett Ferrantino. Great to see you. Great to see you, Lauren.
Thank you so much. I am coming to you tonight from Michigan. My husband's family has a family reunion, so wish me luck.
Nice.
Yeah, so no, it'll be fun. But guys, we're really anxious to bring you tonight's episode. I have been very involved in my short career so far at investigative reporting. I've been very hyper focused on Tennessee, and I started investigating the case of Grant Solomon, which many of you might know about, and we'll get to that later. But there's a case that has really, really, really bothered me for a long time, and that's the case of Lauren Agee. And my own podcast, The Outlier, I've done a couple episodes on Lauren's case. Her mom, Sherry, is so incredible, and she has done everything right. When I say everything right, I mean you will hear all about it. And unfortunately, Sherry still doesn't have answers. And it's really, really disheartening. It's frustrating. And I just can't imagine. So hopefully you guys had a chance to watch the video I did on the Primetime Crime YouTube about Lauren. I did a high level look at what happened the night that she passed away, or what police claim happened, and then what was uncovered through Sherry and her private investigator, Sheila Wysocki, after. And it's a lot. So I'm going to bring Sherry in right now. Hi, Sherry.
Hi. How are you doing, Lauren?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Friday is the 9-year anniversary of Lauren's death.
Wow. I think I knew that, but I didn't put it together that it was Friday. Oh my gosh, that's literally in 2 days. Wow. So yeah, this is extremely timely. So I want to start, Sherry, with essentially what the FBI told you, because this has been really frustrating to me, because everybody, when there is a case like this and it's complicated and people feel like the police didn't quite do their job, they say, bring in the FBI, bring in the FBI. Where's the FBI? Well, the FBI did come in for Lauren's case. And can you explain to everyone what happened and the status with that?
So, everybody watches television, and what you conceive is the FBI is the all-knowing, all-caring. If you get them involved, you've reached this plateau. Oh my gosh, they're going to do something and they're going to do everything right. And well, life is not a television show. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah.
So the FBI called us in to basically for me to tell them everything I knew. Right. And I gave them years of evidence. We had, our legal team, we had experts, we had, you just name it, the gambit of everything. And we handed it to them all. And they took about a year and they went through it. And I guess, they interviewed some people, they said they did. Mm-hmm. They called me in a year later and they said, well, and this was the outgoing head of the FBI for the area. He calls me in and he says, well, do we smell a rat? Yeah. But basically, everything was so messed up and things were not handled properly that we can't win in a courtroom. So there's really nothing that we can do right now to help you. So I wanted to know, what did they do for that full year? I handed them everything I had, which was $300,000 worth of experts and, scientific evidence and everything. So they basically now will not turn it over to me. There's a thing called FOIA, mm-hmm. Freedom of Information Act, where when a law enforcement entity closes a case, the family has the right to that file to see what they did. And they are fighting me tooth and nail. They do not want to give it to me. Why? Why would they turn over to me what they did in that 1 year?
I mean, I want to clarify because so at first they told you it would be like 7 years or something like that. Like, no problem. Yeah, it'll be 7 years. And then they said,
Okay.
nope. Yeah.
So I submitted a FOIA form. I went through the proper channel to submit what I wanted, which was that 1 year of evidence or whatever they did in the file.
Yeah.
And so they sent me a letter back saying, oh, there's just so much in the file. It would take us 7 years to prepare the file to give it to you. So I said, go for it. I've got 7 years. Okay, fine. And now they responded, well, they can't give it to me. They just said no. And I think I sent you that.
You did.
Yes.
The letter. And the letter is a huge slap in the face. But what is their reason? It went from 7 years to never.
They won't answer me. I don't know.
So Sherry,
Yeah.
if I may, so first of all, I have been looking into Lauren's case in preparation for this evening. Let me first say how sorry I am. You had a beautiful daughter, and you have fought like hell for her, and you're a tremendously strong mom. I know something about that. I was raised by one. I'm married to one. I'm surrounded by them, and I represented and fought for a lot of them over my career. And you're amazing, and I'm really honored to have the opportunity to talk with you tonight. I looked at Lauren's case, some of the reports that are available, and first with regard to the FOIA request, I was under the impression the FBI, so let's start here. The FBI has deemed the case closed, right, when they brought you in? Okay,
Yes.
So when a position of not providing the requested documents is taken, they list a reason for not providing it. Did they give you a reason, or it just says your request is denied?
It just said my request was denied.
Okay, and it's a little strange, and this is something, and I know you were active in advocating for victims' rights even before Congress, I believe, right, Sherry? I mean, did you appear with Sheila and testify advocating for victims?
Yes.
Which is a huge issue. So the fact of the matter is this case was closed. What is the harm in providing that information to you at this point? I don't know. Or one of the other options is, instead of a blanket denial, would be a redaction where you provide the documentation, and if there is particular information they don't want to provide, that information could be redacted, which means blacked out. Particular pages could be blanked out. I have responded to FOIA requests, and we call them in Pennsylvania right to know requests, or RTK requests. And some of the information may be sensitive and it's redacted. I would be happy to look at those two responses for you. I'd like to take a look at them. I don't know that I could change them, but I am pretty interested as to why it went from a timeline to a blanket denial.
Exactly. And that would mean the world to me if I could get you the information. So
Sure,
I can even
please do. And what you were advocating for, Sherry, was a change in that on behalf of victims, right? So victims would have the opportunity to access that information, to share with an investigator if they're working with someone, or to pursue. One of the other things that you had done, which is unique in victims, on behalf of victims, is you pursued the individuals you believe responsible for Lauren's death civilly. And which, again, at tremendous expense to you, I would imagine, because it required the securing and paying of experts. You have Sheila, who's done a great job. I had the opportunity to listen to some of her work and read it. It's incredible. That information from the FBI would be helpful on those fronts, wouldn't it be?
Very much so. I mean, and don't you feel if there was nothing there where they closed the case, don't you think as a family that we have a right to see that file and see actually what was investigated and what they did? I mean,
absolutely. And their denial has to really be grounded in a particular exception to FOIA. So when you deny a request, okay, look at the JFK confidential papers that remain confidential to this day, certain portions of them, right? There has to be a reason provided, even if it's these records are confidential because of an ongoing or related investigation, things of that nature. typically one of those exceptions is invoked in the denial, which is why I'd like to see those things, because it will amplify a little bit of where we're at.
That'd be great. I would be so appreciative if you would.
Yeah, I mean, Sherry, I'm guessing that you haven't had an attorney in a long time, because again, you've exhausted every resource here, and you're probably like, well, what is this going to accomplish at this point? You've been going in, it feels like, what, circles for 10 years almost.
Next year will be 10 years. We're at the 9 this year. You just get so mentally beat up. You know, we have been fighting the fight from the day she died until pretty much, I mean, recently, obviously with the FOIA. And it's just, you know, the reason I'm working with these families and we're trying to get victims' rights and their family rights is the fact that all these other families, they're beat up like I am, like my family is. I mean, what we've spent, the time, the hours, and we just want answers. And the fact that the police on every level, DeKalb County to the FBI, TBI, just fight us. They just put up a wall, and I don't know why.
I don't either. I obviously, I've been accused of having Tennessee bias, and I will admit that, because I haven't had the best experience when I've reached out to law enforcement. However, I know that I've been very vocal about criticizing some of what they've done, so I don't expect them to say, oh, here, Lauren, let me just talk to you. You know, I totally understand. However, this seems to be a recurring theme here with, again, many families. And I've spoken to way too many mothers who are not getting answers. And that is just, it's not acceptable. And I just can't imagine if that was me. And I want to go into the judge that presided over your case. I mean, this is crazy. I just saw this. You had sent this to me. He was adding your stepdaughter on social media after. I mean, that is so inappropriate. I don't know how this happens.
All right, so let me explain for the listeners out there what the situation is. So once DeKalb County, which is the county where Lauren died, once they were like, oh, there's nothing to see here, you know, accident, she died, you know, basically, mom, go away. We don't want to investigate this anymore. We don't want to hear from you. We don't want any questions from you. You just shut up and go away. Yeah. So we filed wrongful death lawsuits against the campers that were there with her when she died. Mm-hmm. So they all pled the fifth. Okay. So the judge, we sit through a day of court. The judge disappears for 20 minutes. Comes back in with papers about this big. And so this was prepared far ahead of what he was going to hear in the courtroom that day. So he has this pre-written out message, basically throwing it all out. Okay. So we're like, you know, what's going on here? This is just very bizarre because again, I watched television my whole life. Judges, they're good. They're, that's why they're on the bench, right? Because they are making life and death decisions for all of us. And so this judge comes back and we're all just like scratching our heads going, how did he have this prepared? And how did he know how this was going to turn out way before we got to the courtroom? So years later, okay, now let me not get ahead of myself here. Okay, so we appealed his decision. In a Nashville courtroom, we won. But it was going to go back to the very same judge to be heard all over again. Mm. And that week, my husband's daughter, my stepdaughter, received a LinkedIn friend request from this judge that we had just won the appeal against.
Yeah.
Now, Jarrett, what do you think about that?
Well, first, let me say this.
I know.
I reviewed the appeal decision that was made. And you're talking about the case that was against, was it Hannah Palmer? Is that correct? Mm-hmm. The one that went up? Okay. So for our listeners, let's try to kind of focus the legal world we were in. You sued those 4 individuals for wrongful death. Mm-hmm. And the individuals come into court and plead the Fifth. And the Fifth Amendment is your right against self-incrimination. Okay, so like on TV, I know you're saying things aren't like you see on TV. Sometimes they are. When you see in the movie somebody takes the Fifth, that's what these individuals did, right? And the judge basically said there's no material dispute of fact here, right? If you look at the accusations and these folks taking the Fifth Amendment, Sherry has not set out a legitimate case for wrongful death. Basically, it was to their benefit to take the Fifth, and it goes up, and the judge grants summary judgment and dismisses the case. Is that correct, Sherry, what happened?
Yes.
Okay, so then the Tennessee Appeals Court reviews this and says, hey, judge, how about the fact that Sherry's complaint had a forensic expert, had affidavits signed by other witnesses, had another investigator, police officer, saying these original officers got it wrong. All of these factual claims and attachments to the complaint create what are called genuine issues of fact or genuine issues in dispute. And the appeals court said, hey, judge, you got it wrong. There are a lot of facts in dispute here in a very well-reasoned, well-written decision. Unfortunately, procedurally, their hands are tied. An appeals court can't now hear the case. The case hasn't been heard yet, and then sends it back down to Judge Lincoln, right? Judge, right? So, okay. So the top court got it right. They send it back down. And now you got to go back to the judge that you see prejudge the case. Your position is, look, we didn't even get in there. He walks out with in 20 minutes, a telephone book opinion on the case dismissing it, right?
Exactly.
Let me just say this, though, Sherry. I am sure before you and your attorneys got in there that day, you filed legal arguments, legal briefs with your complaints in response to that motion. And what could have happened here, and this is not to say the judge got it right on the merits because he got it wrong, was his law clerks prepared an opinion in the event that the witnesses took the Fifth. When they did, that opinion is now triggered. The judge goes through it, reviews it, signs it, and comes back in with a decision. That's probably what happened. That doesn't make the decision right. I think he got it totally wrong. Where did the case go from there? You started to tell us. So procedurally, that's where you ended up in this legal procedural soup, which they certainly don't make TV shows about that. I can tell you that. If they do, they wouldn't be rated very well. But where did the case go from there, Sherry? So basically the case against Hannah was reinstated, sent back down for further disposition. Where did it go from there?
So my main attorney, he recused himself from the case. He went on to a different law firm, and he did. And so the other members of the legal team, I never even actually heard back from them until I was notified a while later that I didn't show up for court.
Oh my God.
I was never notified of a date. I was never notified of anything at all.
So was the matter ultimately dismissed?
Yes, it was thrown out because I didn't show up for court. I didn't know to be there.
Yeah.
Can you do anything about that? Like, Jarrett, can she do anything with the attorney's office? That's really, really effed up. I mean,
look, yes and no. I mean, certainly if you weren't notified and somebody dropped the ball there, you should look at consulting an attorney in that state for potentially reviewing that it was properly handled. That doesn't sound good, I can tell you that. But I don't know with the timelines, if the case has been dismissed, if there's anything you could do at this point. I mean, the goal here, Sherry, and I've done enough of these kind of cases, for you was not money, it was answers, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's an unfortunate, because you had success. Like, that firm got that case reinstated. I mean, they did a nice job in getting it reinstated. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened from there.
I've never understood. He got a promotion and became like a semi-partner at another firm. And so he was like, Sherry, I'm sorry, I'm moving on. I mean, and I'm not going to say any names right now, but he handles like some really big national cases and stuff now. So, basically my years invested with him and paying him was not to his benefit anymore. So the other attorney, I'm not going to say any names, that was involved as his partner, she called me on the phone and she said, and this was before I knew that the entire firm had washed their hands of my case, but she didn't feel safe going back into that courtroom again. She was pregnant or trying to get pregnant, and she discussed it with her husband, and she just said, I just can't do this anymore, representing your case. So anyway, I waited for paperwork. I waited for, to hear from this firm, and that's where it just all went away. Never heard from them. And then I'm talking to other people that, do I pursue it any further, Jarrett? And after the LinkedIn sent to my husband's daughter, my stepdaughter, she's just like my own. I love her to death. And she, but you get kind of scared. You're just do I really want to go back into DeKalb County or Putnam County where the courtroom is and battle this system all over again?
Well, and you know what, Sherry? I mean, you're in the best position to answer that question, that very question. What is it you want? You did get, let me say this about your case.
Okay. I have a dog.
Is that a dog?
You have a dog? Stop. I had no idea. No.
So isn't it nice this show we could have a moment of levity when we're talking about all this stuff, right?
I know.
But Sherry, the good thing is, let me say this. So Sherry, I had the honor of representing Don Drexel in the Brittany Drexel case. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Brittany's case, but it has some similarities with Lauren's. First of all, two young, beautiful women, girls go on a trip. They meet a horrible end, and mom is left with no answers for many, many years. Has to pursue her case to the FBI for answers. Fortunately for the Drexel case, we did get some answers and found out what happened and who was responsible. And it took 13 years. But let me say this. If you were given the opportunity in the civil case to ask the hard questions, to put these other campers in a position where they had to get lawyers, they had to prepare to be asked these difficult questions, they took the Fifth Amendment, which is their right to do. I mean, that's the answer at this point in that world that you can get. I mean, unfortunately, a jury's not going to hear it, but at least you held their feet to the fire. I know that they had to be confronted with the expert reports and all the work you put in. It didn't go ignored in their world. So I don't know how far you wanted to take that civil claim, but you did make some progress, which is a lot further than many people in your situation have seen a case go. And that's not a comment on whether or not to pursue it. Really, that's a Tennessee legal question. I'm not licensed there. Whether or not to go further or where it stands currently, I don't know. But I really give you a lot of credit for fighting them on that other front. A lot of people don't understand. There's that criminal front, and then you have the civil front. You took advantage of the civil front because you're in the driver's seat in much more when it comes to that kind of investigation.
All we wanted was answers. I mean, if it was an accident, and I even gave them that out. Just tell me it was an accident.
Yeah.
Okay. But they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Everybody pled the Fifth. And so to me, Lauren, Jarrett, when somebody pleads the Fifth, that usually means they're guilty of something.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think one day we're going to get some answers. I think as these campers grow up, they have families of their own, they, have lives. If they have any kind of conscience whatsoever, they cannot be living with this knowledge, right? I mean, you hear about deathbed confessions all the time. I just think at some point, because I know that people know what happened.
Oh, sure. And I think I've seen it, though, too, Sherry. Just so you know, not only in deathbed confessions, statements made in anger, statements made when you don't think anyone's listening, statements made to benefit a defendant comes forward or a witness comes forward when they find themselves in trouble for something else. Never give up hope. I know it's easier said than done, but I've been a part of prosecuting cold cases. I've been a part of investigations that had gone cold. We thought we hit a wall, and wouldn't you know it, a witness comes forward. So don't lose hope. Don't lose faith, for whatever that's worth, because I've seen cases and people And look, I have more faith in these people getting in trouble and wanting to better their situation by providing information rather than their conscience talking to them. After all this time, I don't know, you know.
Well, so Jared, I have a question for you. What do you do with people that actually have come forward, that actually have reached out to me and said, I want to talk to law enforcement. I want to, tell them what happened, and the police won't respond?
Well, I think, first of all, you have fortified yourself with Sheila, right? I mean, I would elicit their statement. If law enforcement won't take that statement, Sheila is an investigator working on your behalf. Get that statement, get it recorded, get an affidavit signed, present it to law enforcement first. Go to the FBI, go to your local law enforcement, go to DeKalb County, whatever, and say, look, we're giving you an opportunity to address this. If you don't, we're going public with it, or we're going to do this with it. I think, but the biggest thing is, look, I know there are bad cops out there, but the majority of investigators are good and actually care. Okay. And
Jared's never been in Tennessee. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania. You should
I know. He's so
precious,
right? No,
Listen,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But I'm just saying, like, if they're confronted, let's just say an FBI agent is confronted with this new good information. Okay. They have no reason or no loyalty to flush that down the toilet. I'm telling you, you're going to look at the Drexel case. We had 3 FBI agents, okay? Years later, these guys were in grade school, I think, when Brittany went missing, right? They never stopped. And when Don lost hope in law enforcement, it was 3 members of law enforcement that took the ball and carried it forward. So you have to somehow you got to trust the system. For these people, if they're criminally responsible, they got to be arrested. Sheila can't arrest them. She can work her ass off for you, but she cannot arrest these. You have to get a law enforcement arm going. So we have to try to trust the system initially. And if that doesn't work, then you've been very good, and Sheila's been very good at getting your message out there. Then get it out there. Bring these people forward. Bring them on the podcast. Bring them on. They can't ignore that for too long.
Yeah. And Sherry, you've done so much and you've come so far, and I respect you so much for that. But I don't think that you can give up now. I think you've come too far. And I think that if people are coming forward and saying they have information, I think what Jarrett said is a great idea. Give it to Sheila. She literally, they can sign an affidavit, present it to law enforcement and be like, how can you not take this? How can you not look into this further? It's, and for people that are not super familiar with this, or if you didn't watch the video, you can listen to the one-off Crime Junkie episode as well, but it's not going to tell you what Sheila has uncovered since 2015. And there's drug dealers involved. There's a lot of gritty people involved here that are connected in high places in this area. So I just don't want people to think that I'm some Tennessee bashing conspiracy theorist, because I am not. I really am not. I've just done a lot of research and I've spoken to a lot of people. So I also, go ahead.
Part of the reason I want that FOIA is because people have come forward to me and I gave the name and number to the FBI. And they're saying they were never contacted. So I kind of want to know from the FOIA exactly what was done.
Had to pin that right now. You are a warrior. I don't know if you can see that, but you are. You really, really are. And yes, Sue, you're absolutely right. Sherry's done a lot, and she absolutely has been let down. And there are things that are so wacky about this. Sherry was told at one point, the neighbor of one of the campers told, said, I spoke to his family and they're moving. They said their son might be in some trouble soon, and they moved to a different country. You cannot make that up. You cannot. It is factual. And it's just, there's so many of these instances that really make you scratch your head. It's not okay. I'm just looking back up if anyone had any other questions here. So this is interesting. Taryn said this: the court didn't serve you any type of notice. Jarrett, what gives?
Well, the court wouldn't serve someone that's represented notice. They would serve their lawyers notice. So whoever asked that question is accurate in that any type of hearing or motion would, so that would be, their attorneys would be noticed of anything. So they're correct, but it wouldn't necessarily go to Sherry.
Oh my gosh.
I've never got anything.
That is so frustrating. And something else, just to let everyone know, one of the main, I guess, I don't know if they're suspects here, but somebody that knows something, Aaron Lilly, he was actually in a motorcycle accident a few years ago. And he is a quadriplegic now, I believe. Is that right?
From the chest down.
From the chest down. He's paralyzed. And he had married Lauren's friend from that weekend, Hannah. And so now Hannah is taking care of their child and her husband, who is paralyzed from the chest down. So I just wanted to let everyone know, because again, there are many things that have happened since 2015, but all Sherry knows is that her daughter did not wander off of this 90-foot cliff and just fall into a lake. She did not do that. Sherry knows her daughter, and I really would implore everyone to look at the facts here, listen to some podcasts about this case, and you will see for yourself why this does not make sense. And one thing Jarrett and I were wondering, where is Chris Stout at now? The guy she was on the hammock with, or allegedly was hitting on her the whole weekend.
He lives in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and he has a baby.
Do you ever see him?
Oh, yeah.
No, you have to see him?
Oh, yeah. I'll be sitting in a restaurant and he'll be walking in, or we'll be driving down the road and I see him in a car or whatever. Yeah.
So sorry. I'm so sorry. I mean, I don't know. You have such restraint. I just can't. God, Sherry. Well, I mean, I think that I will send Jarrett the letter from the FBI, because I have it in possession and Jarrett can review it. And hopefully we can come up with something to help here.
I would love, Jarrett, I know we have limited time today, but I would love to talk to you and tell you some stuff off the record.
So I'd appreciate that, and I'd be happy to do that.
I will facilitate that. Absolutely. Because Jarrett he's amazing. I mean, that's why, that's why we have this show, because honestly, we want to shed light on these cases, and we want to help. And Forrest, you just said this perfectly. Somebody knows something. We always say that. And I think, Sherry, when you were on my show, you just said, I just want to know. I'm not looking to necessarily put anyone behind bars. I just want to know what happened to my daughter. Stop
Sherry,
lying.
let me just say this. Raymond Moody, when he was caught 13 years later for Brittany Drexel's case, he had said to his girlfriend at the time, all these years, Don Drexel kept the pressure on, and she had very limited resources. She was not a person with money. She was not a person with, she was living in Rochester, New York. Brittany went missing in South Carolina. So other end of the country, quite honestly. But Raymond Moody, there was a billboard in the McDonald's he would go to, and he looked up at that billboard with Brittany's picture on it, and he said to his girlfriend, I wish she would just go away, that mother. It got to him, and it drove him crazy, and eventually he was convicted. So don't ever give up, and keep your name, keep Lauren's face out there, keep her story out there. Mm-hmm. Believe me, they want you to go away.
That's really powerful. Wow. Well, Sherry, like I said, I think you've come so far. And you're amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I'm not going to give up. I mean, I know somebody out there does know something, and I know they can contact you. Is there maybe a call to action or a phone number, or how would they reach you if they wanted to talk?
Yes, I'm going to put everything in the show notes. I'm going to put my own email. I'm going to put, should I put Jarrett's email from your law office, or is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. He's like, no, F you. No, I'm just kidding. So no, we'll put our emails in there, and then I'm going to connect you guys offline. But absolutely. Okay. And I said this on my other show as well. Contact one of us, contact Sheila. Just speak. You can be anonymous. I mean, again, a mother wants answers. So I just feel like everybody should just put themselves in your shoes. So Sherry, thank you so much. And we will definitely be in touch, and we so appreciate you coming on.
Great. Thank you. It was
Thank you.
very nice to meet you, Jarrett.
Take care. Likewise, Sherry.
We'll be in touch. Bye, Sherry.
Bye. Thanks.
Okay, guys. I mean, she's amazing. I can't get over it. And I don't want her to give up. And she's not, but I can't imagine like almost a decade fighting for answers.
The one thing I could say about that story, like there's not a thing she hasn't done. Like when I'm looking at this, I'm like, did they have a forensic expert look at this? Did they have an engineer look at whether or not Lauren could have fallen? They've done everything. I mean, they've worked. That doesn't mean, we will never get there, but they've done a hell of a lot, and I give her a lot of credit.
Yeah. And I didn't I made a video, you guys, before, because I didn't want to get into the details of that night with Sherry on with us. I just didn't think that was productive. So hopefully you guys watching are not super confused at what happened. But essentially, I believe, if I had to speculate, something happened with these campers. And Lauren, she was so beautiful, and she had a boyfriend. She made it clear that she wasn't interested in these men or these guys that she was with that weekend. And something happened. Basically, after they had closed the case, when Lauren's mom got like a second autopsy and had Sheila look into Lauren's death, they found a bite mark on one of her breasts. They found bruises on her inner thighs. They found ligature marks like on her. It was just so messed up. It just really pointed to a better investigation, if you will.
Well, and all of those forensic findings were inconsistent with a fall and drowning. They were consistent with striking, being dragged, not drugged.
Yeah. Right.
And the fact of the matter that there was no water in her stomach. And the amount of water in her lungs, although it's not dispositive on the drowning, it wasn't necessarily consistent with drowning when coupled with those other physical findings on her body. So these are the kind of things that haunt this case, that don't make it look, that really suggest it's not as it's been deemed to be. I mean, that's what, and we don't know. I mean, to sit here and say definitively Lauren Agee was murdered, Lauren Agee drowned, I mean, we'd be speculating and committing malpractice, quite honestly. I mean, there's the fact of the matter is it's worthy of investigation.
Sorry. I was smiling because somebody called you a kind soul, which you are. You're a very kind soul.
Well, thank you. Save that one. Screenshot that.
I'm screenshotting it for your wife and children. No, I'm just kidding. But I feel bad because my only experience with cases in Tennessee have just blown my mind here, where I have a lot of distrust, I guess. And Tommy, I agree with you. It does seem like it's a lot. I feel like, Tommy, we're hyper focused on cases in Massachusetts as well. And obviously me in Tennessee. So these two states, you do hear a lot of corruption,
Well, and here's the other thing. There are times where police can't share information with you. You're in a bad situation. And I'm not saying there aren't bad cops out there. There aren't corrupt cops. There are. But then the nature of their work has to be secretive. They're not sharing enough with victims. It creates this tempest of speculation, and speculation that leads you to the bitter feelings and the conclusion that there's corruption going on. And look, I looked at these cases. You sent me Sebastian's case. You sent me like the Grant Solomon case. Like, I looked at all these cases, and like, there's a couple of things here. There's a common theme here. Obviously, there's some bad legal decisions that were made, clearly. And all the while, there were victims that were largely ignored, which is bothersome to me. I think that, cases begin there. They do. That's who you're fighting for. And, it's look, and it's not just limited to Tennessee. It's everywhere. But
absolutely. I'm just pulling up Sebastian Rogers' picture because I'm just going to share it on the screen right now. And I think, I know that if you're following the Sebastian Rogers case out of Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is where Sherry and Lauren were from, or Sherry is from there. But Sebastian disappeared in February of 2024. He is a 15-year-old autistic, functioning autistic child, and he disappeared without a trace. There have been no new updates, gosh, probably for about 2 months now, I want to say. But I do think it's important that we keep his face out there. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen with a bunch of his photos. Can we see that? Yes, there is Sebastian. Oh my gosh. And this one kind of keeps me up at night, only because he disappeared without a trace. While his parents are claiming he walked out of the house. We don't actually know if that happened, but that's what they believe happened. No dogs picked up his scent. They've had drones, they've had waterway searches. They've had multi-state searches where they've searched in dump ground areas, and it's turned up absolutely nothing. So I wanted to bring his.
One of the things, Lauren, we got to follow up too on the judge back in Sherry's case. We didn't finish what happened to him. It wasn't just a LinkedIn request, right?
Oh, so yeah. No.
We'll go back to that. On Sebastian's case, so I looked at Sebastian's case. There's a broken family situation here.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I always say it's like the little things that jump out at you. And in some of the documentation that I reviewed, I noticed 3 things. 1, he left his shoes behind. Yeah. He left his phone behind. And he left his Nintendo Switch behind. If any of you out there have an autistic child or have worked with autistic children, their Nintendo Switch is their security blanket. It is, I have, our family is touched and blessed with a little member of our family has autism, and he is never far from his Nintendo Switch or a phone, because it's his security blanket. It's the world he understands most and controls. And when I saw that Sebastian was away from his shoes, his phone, his Nintendo Switch, that jumped right out at me. This is not a little boy who in all likelihood walked out on his own voluntarily. Something happened here too. Yeah. And again, it's not our job to sit here and speculate. Lauren and I'd love to tell you what I really think. But, don't sit here and say like, oh, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get sued. But let me tell you, this doesn't add up at all. The version of events that's been provided to investigators is suspect and not consistent. And then the post missing Sebastian conduct of people involved here also doesn't add up. It's not consistent with what you'd expect. Well, somebody might say, oh, you don't know how you'd react in that situation. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be going on holiday if my 15-year-old son was missing.
Okay, so that I'm glad you said that, because Tommy brought this up, and some of the mannerisms of some of the parents, and I say some of the parents because the parents are divorced and mom remarried, and it was highly criticized by the public because she went out of town a few weeks after he was missing. And yeah, I get it. I'm with you, Tommy. I would stay in my house for the next 30 years in hopes that my child would come back. I also have not been in that situation. I just knocked so hard that my knuckles are bleeding right now. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I haven't been in that situation. So I can't necessarily say exactly what I would do, but I would not do that. I would not. So yeah. And Sue, you worked with autistic adults. They do attach themselves to certain objects. They have patterns they follow. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we are made to believe that Sebastian left that house with absolutely nothing. Maybe a flashlight. I believe it's been a while. But yeah, so it's incredibly perplexing. And I think it's important that we keep his face out there. Let me see if there's anything else that anyone said, but let me see. Taryn, the off-duty cop who said Lauren came up to him that night, gave me strange vibes. Isn't it? Oh, sorry. I went back too far. We're talking about Lauren's case now. Went back too far. Sorry, Taryn.
So just to jump back into that one.
Oh, yeah.
The judge has been removed or is temporarily suspended for conduct inappropriate conduct, sending. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Jonathan
that
Young.
is the same judge, the article you sent me?
Jonathan Young, yes, that's who we were speaking about. He was doing it to a lot of young women, I believe, and
Doing what exactly?
adding them as
Okay.
friends on
Yeah.
social media and messaging them.
But he is not removed for that. He's in hot water because he engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a woman who was before him with an adoption petition, correct?
I don't know the details of that. I just know what he did with Sherry's stepdaughter and how he was, I don't know, he faced some.
Who was the judge you sent me the article on? Was it him?
That was him.
Okay, so that's the
Yeah.
and I don't want to misspeak. I just want to make sure that was the individual. Okay, so the article you sent me involved a judge who engaged in a relationship with a woman who was before him with a pending adoption petition. And we believe it's the same judge.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. And I think I bring up Judge Casey Moreland because he's another, I don't know if you've heard of that, but Casey Moreland was a Nashville judge who essentially, I'm not certain if he's out of jail yet, but he literally was having sex with defendants to keep them out of jail, like sex workers. And one of them ended up dying by suicide. It's so insane. If you guys have time, look up Judge Casey Moreland. That is one of the most corrupt things that has come out of Tennessee. But Tommy said, it's been 45 minutes and we have yet to get Jared's weekly Karen Reed update. I'm sure he's very upset this week.
Oh, yeah.
So happy.
We're in Tennessee.
I know.
How does Karen Reed find her way to Tennessee? That's a great point.
She really does. And I want to also just bring up, obviously, Grant Solomon, because I don't like to say a death anniversary because I feel like that anniversary is something happy. So it's the 4-year mark last week of Grant's passing. And unfortunately, his case is considered closed, but many of us believe that police should have done some further digging, further investigating, because his death physically doesn't make sense. The laws of physics with him being drugged 60 feet down a ditch under a hot car, it doesn't really add up, based on the injuries to his body. That's another crazy one that people should really look into because it's very sad. And the family dynamic there has just been pretty rough for his sister Gracie and for his mom. So that one, I mean, it's heartbreaking and it eats at me. And that county, Sumner County, is right next to Sebastian. I believe Sumner and Davidson County are bordering, and Lauren from Sumner, Sebastian, and then Grant passed away in Sumner County. So it's.
Where is the Johansson case that that you shared with me?
So Lauren Johansson is so heartbreaking. So that was Davidson County, actually.
And could you tell everybody what was involved there?
Yes. So if people are not familiar with Lauren Johansson, Lauren was from Mississippi. Her boyfriend is from Mississippi as well. They were having a vacation, a holiday in December in Nashville, and her boyfriend had a history of domestic violence. I don't know if it's domestic if they're boyfriend, girlfriend. Is that still called domestic, Jarrett?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean,
Okay.
In the law, yeah.
Okay. So they're on vacation. They're having a good time. They were by the Cumberland River, which kind of gave me chills because speaking of Nashville, that's where Riley Strain was found, the Cumberland River. They went to museums, they went to Broadway in Nashville, and then they were at a bar one night, and he had accused Lauren of, and his name is Bryson Rivers, and he had accused her of having sex with a bartender, completely just out of the blue, picking a fight, most likely drunk, and he ended up beating the living daylights out of her. Her head was swollen. Her eye was swollen shut. He took her phone so she couldn't call the police. And police ended up finding them in like a parked car with him on top of her. So he was taken into custody. He was arrested. And it was December. He ended up posting bail in June. And then a few days later, he found Lauren and he killed her. And it turns out that there was an issue. I can't even imagine being this Lauren's family, but there was an issue with the bail bond company and the clerk at the courthouse where they didn't share the stipulations of his release and his bail. And it's insane. They basically gave them one sheet instead of the full sheet. It's beyond bonkers. And if I were this family, Jarrett, I would be after they can sort of get themselves together after this grief, I would be, making some lawsuits happen, right?
Well, I would expect that in this case. So there's corruption and then there's incompetence.
Yes.
This appears to be more of an incompetent situation.
Absolutely.
So Bryson Rivers secured bail in his case. So the judge and the judge's so bail is a situation. You hear that word, he's charged with a very serious crime. He was charged, I believe, with kidnapping too.
Yes.
So, and it was a violent assault, there's simple assault and then there's aggravated assault. That's when you're really using a weapon, causing the kind of injuries that could risk your life. So she sustained those types of injuries at this point, right? So she is badly beaten. Yep. He probably would have killed her that night. Yeah. So he is entitled to bail, okay? His lawyers petitioned to have Bryson Rivers bailed out.
Yeah.
The judge says, okay, you're entitled to bail. The DA objects to bail at all. And here's why you could object to bail as a DA. You would say to a judge, and I've done it 1,000 times, the criminal history of this particular person says they're not going to report to court. We need to keep them where they know they're at. His or her crimes are escalating. You cannot let them out. They're a threat to themselves or society. They are in the throes of severe drug addiction. They don't have any ties to this particular community. If I was opposing the bail for Bryson Rivers, I would say he's going to kill Lauren, period. Okay, if you let him out, he's going to kill her. Now, the DA may have said that. I don't know.
Well, her father said that.
Okay, so the judge so if a judge is going to lower the bail, so the judge, from what I read, lowered the bail from $250,000 to $150,000, and a bond is put up.
Yes.
Then the judge has the right to say, fine, we're going to let you go out on bail at $150,000. You're going to wear an ankle monitor. You are not going to be allowed to leave your home county. Other things like you're going to be drug tested. You have to report to a daily reporting center. Things like that are typically put on this, what they call a bail piece. It sounds to me like only half the bail. So the judge did their job in this case, right? I don't necessarily agree with lowering the bail, but the judge has the discretion to do that and felt assured that these other parameters were going to assure Lauren's safety. The problem is the clerk, who's not the judge's clerk, it sounds like the clerk's office within the county, gets this bail piece and only distributes one page of it, page 2, believe it or not, that lacks all the initial more definitive conditions and only has the remaining components of the bail.
Yep.
That is what's sent out when Bryson is released from jail. So essentially, he's let out. The GPS monitoring company they end up linking up with is a brand new company monitoring a very, very dangerous criminal or alleged criminal at this point, who they don't understand is now required only to be not in a particular state, a particular county. So they're not even tracking him properly. And then there's
it died. The battery died on it's so insane. And I want to read to you something. I mean, it's just crazy. They admit it. The clerk's office actually admits it and says someone in our office made a mistake. When the release was sent to the sheriff, it did not contain the conditions that were outlined in the order, especially the portion talking about the person needing to have a GPS tracking device. At the very least, a copy of the order should have been attached to the release. The sheriff's office was sent a second form with more information, but we did not receive that at the time of the release. I mean, that's unacceptable. And a beautiful young girl is now dead, and she suffered a horrible death. I am sure that girl was, I shouldn't say that girl. I'm sure Jack Fox would literally be very upset with me. I'm sure Lauren was terrified. I mean, this is so infuriating and so tragic, Jarrett.
So basically she's beaten by Bryson Rivers. He's arrested and jailed. He's bailed, let out.
Yep.
She ends up improperly supervised and monitored. She ends up in the trunk of his car dead.
Exactly. And so what happened was when the GPS tracker died, they couldn't find him. That's when they issued a warrant for his arrest. Judge Blackburn said, arrest him on July 2nd. And at that point, I believe Lauren's father was notified a few days before, and maybe on the 29th. Actually, I'm almost certain it's the 29th. And he called Lauren, and she was still alive, because at this point, we don't know the exact day that she passed away. We know that her body was found in the trunk on July 3rd. But at that point, when her dad called her and said he's out, she was still alive. And then, Bryson, he got to her. And this is just one of those cases that you're just like, this should not have happened. This girl, Lauren, should still be alive. Lauren Johansson should still be alive. She loved animals. She should still be alive with her beautiful cat. And God, it's horrible. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, that one, that's another case that shows if anybody is involved or knows anybody in a relationship like this, like they only end a couple of ways, none good. One of them dead, one behind bars, one forever broken. I mean, it just like this guy, think of the level of commitment. He gets bailed and he kills it. And look, this is just like the McCain case we've been talking about in many respects. You have this underlying aggravated assault charge. So Lauren, not only is Lauren his victim, okay, she's also the main witness against him in a very, very serious criminal case. He clearly can't keep his hands off her from assaulting her. So he's got multiple reasons for wanting Lauren out of the picture here. Okay, yeah. He's clearly very jealous, doesn't want her with anybody else, doesn't want the main eyewitness to his aggravated assault charges. So he kills her in a rage, or not in a rage, planned out. It's clear.
Sounds like it.
So we've been analyzing and looking at the McCain case and looking at what could have possibly happened there. And like, it is a likely scenario, unfortunately, that in an effort to silence, I don't want to go there, but the reality is it's a very similar situation.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think at this point with the Nikki Chang Salee McCain case, I had asked this last week, are they treating this as a rescue or a recovery? I don't know. And I think that things look grim at this point. And I hate to say it, but I think they do. So, in the case of Lauren Johansson, I pray that justice is served. And I do pray. I know that the system isn't perfect, Jarrett. I know that, obviously, you know that more than anyone. But I think things like this, someone in this office needs to be held accountable.
Well, and the only thing is, look, people throw that corruption word around a lot, and it's merited often. I've seen people accused of it. I've been accused of it, like, improperly. Mm-hmm. I've seen corruption, though. I just think that sometimes justice takes time. Sometimes, things slip through the cracks, and it's not necessarily corruption. It's incompetence, or it's the evil forces that compel people to commit crime. I mean, or it's not enough resources. It sucks. And the system, it's not always fair. I've seen that too. I wish it was. It's not perfect. Yeah. But, you hope people there's so much cynicism out there. And I hate to be Pollyannish after 20 years of doing this, but like, there's so much cynicism out there. But at the same time, like, I've been given the opportunity in my career to stick a stake through bad guys' hearts, like, routinely, on behalf and for victims. And like, the system worked for those people. you know, and like that
Mhm.
was a great feeling. And I didn't do it alone. I was on the shoulders of people standing behind me and with me and fighting for these people. So I don't know. I just feel like sometimes everybody loses faith in the system, and if there's anything we
No.
could do is maybe restore a little bit of hope for it.
No, I really appreciate your positivity, especially after spending 20 years locking up pieces of shit, literally. So I do appreciate that. I think I just, again, after studying Tennessee for, over a year, I uncovered a few things that really made my stomach hurt. And I've talked to Sherry a lot off the record, and things that she's told me and showed me proof of, along with Angie Solomon, Grant's mother. It's just like I've seen certain things with my own eyes that make me very scared, very, very scared. And this is also really random, but in Tennessee, you're not really required to, or if somebody dies suddenly, they don't need an autopsy. Like, right? Like if my husband dies in Tennessee in the middle of the night and I am friends with the police chief and I call him, or I call the police and I'm like, hey, my husband died. He choked on some peanuts right next to me. They're going to come to my house and be like, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And let's say I was the one that choked him. Instead, they're going to say, oh yeah, he choked. This is my friend Lauren. I've known her since kindergarten. Case closed. Especially if they're like, well, do you want an autopsy? And I'm like, no, I saw him choke. I'm good. They don't have to do that. Like,
Well, that's pretty typical though, Lauren.
oh,
I
it
mean,
is.
yeah. I mean, if there's no indicia, I mean, like, look, I'm not going to counsel you on how to, but let me say this. So if, let's take your scenario, right?
Okay.
If the officer responds to your house and everything there is consistent with what you said, okay, that happens. Okay, that happens. It would be an unfortunate accident. And there's nothing there that would suggest there was foul play involved. In all likelihood, there would not be an autopsy. They're not automatic. It's a
Okay.
discretionary practice. Now, if they get to your house and you're acting erratically, or there's no bag of peanuts there, nothing is consistent with your version
Right.
of events, then there is a recommendation. But there are often times that autopsies are not done. I mean, it's just there has to be some indicia of foul play, or there's just an unknown cause of death, and there needs to be a death investigation to determine that. So,
Well, I get that. I mean, I totally get that. I'm familiar with some of these laws. I just mean with what you said, let's say there's no bag of peanuts. Let's say I'm acting a little weird. If I know that police chief and we went to kindergarten together, whatever, and another guy says, maybe we should dig a little further. Like they don't really, they can just be like, nope, sorry, whatever.
right.
But I'm familiar with, certain things where there's not, you don't need an autopsy. But if something for me was like Grant Solomon, he didn't have an autopsy. His dad said, I don't want one. And yet we hear this 911 call where dad is still not really sure what happened to him. So that always confused me. Well, why did no one in that hospital say, wait a second, the death certificate says run over by a car, but he doesn't have a scratch on his body? They're not going to say, we need an autopsy here. Nope, that wasn't done. And that to me is very suspicious. And Tommy said, if Lauren starts writing children's books, we know what happened. I'm not Corey Richins, okay? God, I shouldn't have said me in that situation. Whatever. And look at us. We're already 3 minutes over our hour, but this was interesting to me. So
Wild trip into Tennessee. So
yeah. No, I don't know if anyone. Oh yeah. And this Sue said this, not doing rape kits. So this was Lauren Agee. They didn't do a rape kit on her, even though they should have. And they said it's because she had her period. And she, that she had a tampon. I was like, wait, what? And the lead investigator, he was a man. I was just like, shouldn't a female tell him that it still can happen? Just saying. Yeah.
yeah, I thought he had said, or it was reported he had said at one time, he didn't request one because he didn't know he had to for an autopsy.
The lead this guy also admitted to never investigating a death or a homicide so yeah. there was a lot of things wrong with that. And that's why people need to go and dig into the Lauren Agee case, because it's just, there's so many things about it. So, but anyway, if you guys have any cases that you want us to cover, we are open to hearing. So yeah, let us know.
And if anything breaks in some of our favorite cases, we'll make sure to put a video out too that day. So
Yes, absolutely. We have some ideas for next week, some cases that we've been looking into. But yeah, we are always open to suggestions. And again, we will keep everybody. Oh, yes. So, I mean, Sebastian, I want to keep his face out there. And I think maybe I'll call around in Sumner County and see if I can get any other information. But good night, Sal. Thank you so much for joining us. But yes, we'll also put out videos when we get updates on Nikki McCain, obviously the Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly, and the suspects in that case. We are following all of that. And Lauren, you are so welcome. There's been a lot of Laurens on tonight. So
next week we should do the Harris-Trump upcoming election. I think that would be a great episode.
I think that sounds horrible. Right. Politics sound awful. There's enough politics and crime. God. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us at Primetime Crime Live, and we'll see you next week.